Hey, salmon skins. Wow, I held that for very long. Didn't realize I had that in me. I could have done it for longer. Hey, that's what he said. But welcome to episode 20. Getting kind of filthy straight off the bat there. I'm not normally like that. I don't even normally swear that much. But it's a podcast, so you can do what you want. And if I bleep that out, maybe I could mark this as not explicit. So I could have been saying anything. Who knows? If you're a parent listening to this with your children, I'd be very, very surprised.
Where is fancy bread? In the heart or in the head?
So, guys, it is episode 20. Sorry there was no song at the start there. I've been having issues getting a hold of Brendan Blowhart and Tommy. I think Brendan and Tommy, the bus driver from Burr, are living together in an apartment somewhere in Dublin, but I think they've gone AWOL. I'm not too sure that they know about the pandemic. I think they realise something's going on, but they kind of live in their own worlds. And I know Brendan, he sent me a text message saying, not feeling great, sore throat, dry cough, feeling very tired. And I went, well, do you think you might have the coronavirus? And he said, he texted back, no, just been eating a lot of custard creams and bourbon creams. So I don't know, is he trying to supplement his alcoholism with bourbon creams? But I got news for you, Brendan, if you're listening. There's no bourbon in those bourbon creams. It's just a name. They couldn't have bourbon and bourbon creams and have children eat them and get slightly drunk and drive their little kiddie cars into the wild. We don't want that happening. So guys, I am going to talk on this episode about a very specific topic. And that specific topic is ghosts. Ghosts. Are they scary? Are they a Stanley Kubrick, renowned film director and intense man with a beard? Are they proof that there is an afterlife? And if there's proof that there's an afterlife, if ghosts are real, then that kind of makes everything worthwhile on Earth, I guess was his point. Because he directed it famously, The Shining. Like, he viewed it as a horror movie, but he said he viewed it as a positive thing. Whereas, like I said, if there are ghosts, that means there is an afterlife. However, his ghosts are fucking scary ghosts. The bit in The Shining where Jack Nicholson, and here's another really bad impression. How you doing? I'm Jack Nicholson. All right, I'm going to go into this room and, there's a big, scary old lady in a bathtub. It's that weird thing where, he goes in and it's like a sexy woman who comes towards him and gives him a hug. And, if he took one look at the register at front desk, he'd know that she wasn't supposed to be there. There's no guests. It's the winter time and there are no guests. So he would be like, lady, what are you doing in here in the bath? You're not a guest in this hotel. And then she hugs him and turns into an old lady with like lesions and sores and stuff on her. And he goes, I'm suddenly not aroused. And flawless Jack Nicholson there. And he runs away screaming like a little girl. But The Shining, very scary. I remember that scene in particular scared me when I was younger. Not too young, but I remember the very first thing I ever saw that really scared me was Ghostbusters, the 1984 comedy classic. It's a comedy. I mean, I didn't really get the humor of it at the time. I was more interested in the whole kind of world of blue-collar men who were setting up a business where they were going to be exterminators, but ghost exterminators. But they're basically, it's like they're going in and cleaning out cockroaches or rats or other vermin, as they're known collectively, which I think that's a bad rap. I think vermin is, I think it should just be called like a plethora of rats or something. But vermin is just, it's used negatively. Obviously, it's a negative word. But that movie scared the shit out of me. Now, At the time, I was only, like 7 years old. So it was one of the first movies I saw. And I remember that and the Never-Ending Story being scary. And there's two bits in the Never-Ending Story that really... one of them just kind of sort of killed my soul a little bit. Because in that movie, Atreyu and his horse... Although Atreyu, when I saw the Never-Ending Story, your man who goes around on the horse, and the horse gets eaten by a swamp. Well, like the swamp doesn't like form jaws and teeth and start chomping on him, but it gets sucked into a swamp, into a bog, and that was so soul destroying, because I remember at the time watching it going, oh yeah, I mean, like I've seen stuff before where there's been, mild peril, as it's now known. When they put warnings on movies, they say may contain mild peril, and this was like, should have had a warning, may contain scenes that will psychologically scar your children for life. Because I thought, oh well, the horse is going to get out of this, or it's going to go under, and then they're going to put a stick in, and the horse will be grabbing the stick with its teeth and pull it out, and everything will be fine, and they'll get on with the movie. But no, the horse goes underneath, doesn't come back, and then the audience and Atreyu, I think it's Atreyu, isn't it? Or maybe the horse is called Atreyu. I have done no research on this because I've literally just thought about it because I want to talk about Ghostbusters. But I'm going to look it up. And yeah, he's dealing with the horse dying. And like, for me, it was like a guy, although he was very sort of androgynous, that character. I think it's because he was a young boy. Like Bastian, that's it. Bastian is the kid who's reading it the whole time. But the other... Now, I'm looking it up on IMDb, and Tammy Stronach played the childlike empress. Childlike Empress. Was that her actual name? Alan Oppenheimer. Oh my God. Falkor, the Luck Dragon Falkor, was voiced by the guy in Fargo. In Fargo, when your man's wife is kidnapped, the dad, who Steve Buscemi shoots, the tall bald man with the mustache, he did the voice of Falkor. Oh my God! See, just never knew that. These are just things you just don't get. So, oh yeah, Deep Roy was in it. What a name, Deep Roy. Atreyu, that's it. Noah Hathaway. Finally, I was right. Atreyu, born 1971. I don't want to see a picture of you now. Did you know he speaks French fluently? No, I did not know that. Noah Leslie Hathaway. So yeah, Noah Hathaway playing Atreyu. Atreyu just has to fucking deal with it and move on. But also in that movie, there's a wolf. There's like this werewolf thing. And I remember being so scared I was close to losing my bladder. Like, for real, I was going to piss myself with fear. And then years later when I saw it, I realized that it was just like a puppet. And not like a puppet like the T-Rex is a puppet in Jurassic Park, because I still believe that that's a real dinosaur, because it's just cut together so well. But this was like so obviously a puppet that I was kind of embarrassed at how scared I was. But Ghostbusters scared me, and I remember having to leave the cinema. I got so scared. I was there with my mum, and I left. I think I went back the next day to watch it and watch the end of it, watch it again. But it was the scene where Dana Barrett, played by Sigourney Weaver, is possessed by Zool, and she's the gatekeeper, and Rick Moranis is the keymaster, and she's possessed, and she's got this weird dress on, this kind of sort of silky, flouncy dress, and she's done her eyes and stuff. If you look at that scene, she's possessed, but she's done her eyes with this weird kind of eyeshadow all sort of pointing off, And I'm like, where did she get that dress? Did she just have that dress and say, well, if I ever get possessed by an old demon, I'll just throw on this dress because it'll be appropriate for, I mean, you got to have a demon dress. You got a little black dress, you got like a summer dress, and you got a possessed by a demon dress. And it was time for her to put on that dress. And Venkman, Bill Murray, shows up at the door. And I remember him being so calm. And as a child, in my head, I was screaming, "Why are you so calm? She's a demon. She's possessed." And I didn't quite get what had happened, because the whole concept of possession for me was very, very alien. And I think I was just put off by her seemingly very powerful and strong sexuality, because up to that point, Venkman is trying to get Dana Barrett in bed, and he's trying to woo her. He's trying to woo her to lay her, in the parlance of the 1980s. And then all of a sudden he shows up the door and the tables are turned, and she's like super sexy, super, she's like lying on the bed, and she starts levitating. And I remember I couldn't handle it. I remember the whole scene being really, 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 really tense. I was like terrified. I was just like, I feared for Bill Murray. I was like, what is he doing? Why is he being so cool? I know he's a cool guy, but this is not the time for this cool behavior. He should be terrified. And I had to leave the fucking cinema. Oh my God. So I have compiled a list, because my other podcast, Reviewables, we like to review things. And people come in sometimes with lists of things that they like. And this is a list of things. Ghosts. The best ghosts. Some are fictional. Some are real. Well, wait, no, all are fictional. Some are from movies. But anyway, listen, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back after these short messages. Salmon of Knowledge is a Salmon of Knowledge commercial break tonight.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.
So who you gonna call?
Ghostbusting!
Each sold separately.
Have no fear. Venkman, Steph, and Spengler are here. So are these ghosts. They've got ectoplasm. We've been gooped. Now what? Stay puft Marshmallow Man. Let's show this pile of dessert who's boss. Activate Neutrona Blaster. We ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Peter Venkman, Ectoplasm, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and other figures each sold separately.
Coming back from commercial break, and we're back with the podcast now. Bop, bop, bop. So, guys, we're back. So, thanks very much for listening. I'd like to thank my newest patron, Terry McInerney. Terry, thank you so much. You are a star, a legend, a woman amongst girls, a goddess amongst mortal women. And that's as high it goes. That's as high as it goes. You are the Supreme Court Justice of patrons. So I'll thank someone else in my next one. And hopefully those patrons will keep going. If you're listening to this and you're enjoying it, please do like, subscribe, give us a review. That always helps. Tell your friends. Download it without listening to it, because that helps me as well. But please do listen. Get involved. Tweet me at Edwin Sammon. Follow me on Instagram at Edwin Sammon. And live the rest of your lives free to fulfill all of your spiritual, mental, and physical needs. Thank you very much for listening. So here's my list. Slimer. Okay. In no particular order. I just picked 5 kind of random sort of ghosts. Slimer, I don't know if some people know this, but in the lead up to Ghostbusters, Dan Aykroyd had written, essentially, he was kind of like doing a sort of a J.R.R. Tolkien on it, where he was writing a massive screenplay, which was like, he did a lot of research into occult books and stuff like that. And, his whole family going back generations are like psychics and are paranormal investigators. So this is like he actually calls it the family business. He's a little bit eccentric, or Dan Aykroyd, but he wrote this interdimensional story that was like going to cost a James Cameron sized budget to put on the screen. And he ended up kind of cutting it down. a lot of the ideas for the original screenplay actually ended up in the video game Ghostbusters, which is not great, but it's interesting if you want to hear the textbook definition of a phoning it in performance from Bill Murray. In fact, I think he probably did phone it in quite literally, but he sounds so massively bored. And in the run up to it, Dan Aykroyd started writing it. Then Harold Ramis came on and was writing it with him, and it was years in development. And John Belushi was going to be one of the Ghostbusters. That was fully because him and Dan Aykroyd were great pals. They'd done the Blues Brothers together. They'd done a movie called Neighbours, which not a lot of people have seen, including me. Maybe I'll watch it and tell you all about it on one of my movie podcasts, which are coming up soon. And you can get them early on Patreon. There's another Patreon plug. I've got too many plugs. So, but then he died and actually became a ghost in what some would say is one of the greatest acts of method acting ever seen. We're going to cast you as a ghost, John Belushi. All right, I better get dead just so I know what it's like. And as a result of that, the character of Slimer, and I don't know if this is true, if this is an urban legend or not, but they said the character of Slimer was invented as a sort of this is John Belushi. This is a kind of a tribute to our dear friend John Belushi. This floating, legless, because that's the thing about Slimer. He's got arms, he's got a head, but no kind of neck. He's just got a round body. It's like if a giant green potato died and came back and just wanted to eat shit. And I don't know if that's the greatest tribute to a friend of yours, and if his family, his childhood sweetheart, everyone he left behind would go see it and Dan say, hey, that disgusting green thing that just keeps eating and it seems kind of mindless and slimes Venkman. Yeah. Just thinking of John. Just thinking of Johnny. Just what? No, to me, that's an insult. But Slimer is iconic. So iconic. He was in the sequel. He was in the remake. He was in the cartoon series that I loved. I loved Ghostbusters so much that me and my younger brother Johnny used to run around with fake backpacks, which were just backpacks, but they weren't proton packs. And we had, did we have hurls or something as our photon guns? And then we used books as the traps because, they were square. So we'd run around pretending to catch ghosts with our imagination before old age and drug abuse took that from us. But, when you're young... Oh, hello. Sorry, that was my youth squeaking at me. A bit of a gap here. 905. So, here are the list. So, next up, Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, a great movie. I love that movie so much. One of the first movies that I ever bought the soundtrack for. I bought the soundtrack on cassette tape, or cassette tape as the city folk call it. And I love the music. I love the weirdness of that movie. The way it's kind of almost too frightening to be funny, but doesn't quite cross over that line. Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, and Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. And it's the weird thing. Beetlejuice, to me, is a scary character because he doesn't have a lot of backstory. And he's kind of almost like the Joker. Now, I know Michael Keaton is not Michael Keaton, the actor, but he sounds very similar. But Michael Keaton, he could have played the Joker. In fact, if you look at Beetlejuice, he's got similar kind of makeup to Heath Ledger's Joker. I don't know if maybe Heath Ledger was influenced by Beetlejuice. Just the look of him, because he's got that weird panda eyes, and he's got no name. That's the thing. I know Beetlejuice is his name, or Betelgeuse, which is a planet or a solar system. No, it's a planet. Yeah. No, it's a star. Shut up, Ed. It's, okay, I will. He's got no name. He's just Beetlejuice, but that can't be his real name. But he was like rude and just seemed like he wanted to kill people. You know, he wanted to kind of torture and kill people. He was disgusting, but kind of like lovable. And again, they made a cartoon series out of him. Now, my next pick is probably not the... he's like the opposite of Beetlejuice. Casper, the friendly ghost. Because, I know... Casper, I never really enjoyed the cartoon. I never really watched it. I did watch the 1995 movie with Christina Ricci, and Eric Idle is in it. And funnily enough, Dan Aykroyd has a little cameo as Ray Stantz, where he comes out of the house and he says, in all these Ghostbusters gear, and says, "Who are you going to call? Someone else." And he fucks off. And I was thinking, like, these ghosts, like Casper and his uncles... Like, I mean, he's a friendly ghost. He's not like a giant fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He's not like a demon dog. Like, Ray Stantz saved the world twice, was possessed by Vigo the Carpathian, and yet he can't handle a couple of friendly ghosts. Well, one friendly ghost and his annoying uncles. Now, Cork comedian Chris Kent has a great routine about how Casper the Friendly Ghost, which is a very old show, like it ran from like the 40s, how it was pitched. A dead child who's now a ghost, and we follow his adventures where he scares people, but then he helps them out, and they go, "Ah, you're not so bad. I'm sorry you died." Because like, what can you do? You can't say, "Oh, you're not so bad. You know, here's some money for buying stuff in the afterlife." Like, you've got no worries if you're a ghost. It's almost like being a vampire, except it's completely different. So, yeah, a boy ghost who's friendly. Because that's the thing about ghosts. There's been such a bad rap on ghosts, and people are terrified of ghosts. And they just, they have to call him, but he's a friendly ghost. It's in the name. It's like he changed his name to Casper. Like, his full name is Casper the Friendly Ghost, because he's a friend. Not Casper the, "Oh my God, I can't believe it's a fucking ghost. I'm going to shit my pants. Oh no." You know, not as catchy. So here's one, right? The Vanishing Hitchhiker. Now, this is not like a named ghost. This is more of a kind of an urban legend. And like a lot of urban legends, it's dubious as to whether it's true or not, because it's always my brother's cousin's roommate's father is a guard, and he heard the story of a couple who picked up a ghost hitchhiker. But the story is essentially the same. But I don't believe it, or I have doubts believing it, because you always hear it from someone who heard it from someone else. You never hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Now, if you've ever had a ghost encounter, please tweet me at Edwin Sammon, or, you know, don't. Those are your two choices. But tell me about it, because I've heard from people. I know someone who said they were on like a country road, and there was a tractor coming towards them, and then as the tractor got closer, they saw that no one was driving the tractor. And I said, well, to me, I would explain that by like someone jumping out down the road and letting the tractor continue, and be like, ha ha ha, giggling away in the bushes as their tractor, you know, ends up plunging into a car head first and killing a family of 3. But, and then creating more ghosts. But yeah, The Vanishing Hitchhiker, it's the old story. A couple are driving on a road. It's a cold night. They see a girl, young girl, who's hitchhiking. She's wearing a green dress. She's got bare feet. She's got no shoes or socks on. What an idiot. She'll get frostbite and lose her toes. So they pick her up. She says, "Oh, I live nearby." And they drive to this farmhouse, and they pull into the driveway, and they go, "Here we are." They turn around. "We're at your You're not here? They've disappeared. So what do? They freak out. They ring the door, and the door is answered by a woman. They said, "Excuse me, we picked up a hitchhiker, a young girl wearing a green dress. She said she lived here." And then the old lady says, "That was my daughter, and she died 20 years ago tonight." And then they just go, "We're so sorry to have brought up these painful memories. We'll leave right away." And off they go. And then they see hanging on a nail the green dress that the girl wore. Dun 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 dun. But like, why would she keep a green dress? Her daughter's green dress. Probably the dress she wore, well, according to the story, she was wearing a green dress when they picked her up. The dress she wore when she died. Why would she hang that on a nail outside the house as a constant reminder of her daughter who died too young 20 years ago? It just doesn't seem plausible. Now, my final pick for ghosts is when I was doing, I did a little bit of research just looking up famous ghosts. And this one, which has appeared in a number of motion pictures, the Pirates of the Caribbean, or a Caribbean, and the Flying Dutchman is a ghost ship. And when I was doing my internet research, one hilarious line came up about the Flying Dutchman, which had said, "Probably the world's most famous non-human ghost." And I thought, right. So this raises the question of, can a ship die and come back as a ghost? Because if you think about it, people who see ghosts, they're always wearing like old clothes. They're never in contemporary clothes. You know, you never see someone who's wearing like 2002 combat pants and has like sort of gel spiky hair, like they just walked off at the set of the Scooby-Doo movie or something. You know, they don't have that kind of shitty baggy pants Walkman or mini disc player. You know, they're not like texting on a first generation Nokia and ignoring people. They're always like 18th century Dutch girls, or, you know, they're always like olden time people. But I guess if they're wearing clothes, does that mean that clothes can die and come back as a ghost? If a whole ship can die and come back as a ghost? It just seems, and like the story goes, it's like some Dutch captain who, you know, risked his entire crew and they all died. But like, is the ship inhabited by ghosts? And, you know, how does that work? Like, if you die in a car crash, the car doesn't come back as a ghost with you, and you go driving around in your ghost car. And I'm not talking about Ecto 1 here. I'm just talking about ghost cars. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that brings me on to what I'm going to talk about in the next episode, which is one of my favorite shows that myself and my brother watched, called Most Haunted, which was a show where people tried to find ghosts. So I'll be talking about that in the next episode. So that's all for now. And thanks for listening, guys. And there'll be another episode out the day after tomorrow. So I'll talk to you then. Bye. 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 Bye.